So those are the three kind of buckets. There's injury vulnerability, minimum effective dose, and the training plateaus. Now, of course, like the overarching theme here is that it's important to have, the DNA insights to guide those things. But certainly it was a conversation that I had with, hundreds of coaches, during this performance genomics odyssey that I went on. So, as you start to speak more and more to coaches across different disciplines, one of the things that you started to see, that I started to see, which, I haven't quantified, but I believe it's more than anecdotally. Generally, the athletes who are in that top 1%, they have coaches that take on like a gardener type of philosophy versus a drill sergeant, So, or, there's this notion of awfulness versus awesomeness coaching, right? So, this comes back to, effectively how the coach gets the athlete to see that the answers were inside of them all along, how they help them, navigate the, uncertain terrain, because it is uncertain. When you're talking about hundreds of seconds between, first place and last place in something like the 100-meter final, the attention to detail, sure, it's important, but it's really about the empowerment of the human holistically in the endeavor that they're about to take on. So really fascinating project that really does echo the time eternal nature versus nurture balance, and so that's in a nutshell is what I learned from the athletes and their coaches.
As you were kind of describing, your body doesn't respond or doesn't get what it needs out of carrots. And I was thinking about how it correlates to my energy levels, and I haven't done my genetics. And I kind of had this moment and I was like, oh, I feel kind of like, I'll have days where energy is stronger, energy is lower. And I don't really know what the underlying cause is. I mean, obviously it's food, but it does sort of feel like I'm playing Russian roulette with my food, like 1,000 different games of Russian roulette of like, okay, my body might like this bread. Like, I think I've got some ideas about what my body likes, it doesn't like, but from, I don't process carrots properly. Like I suspect that would be a hard one to figure out just by, feeling around.
Yeah, it's true. And it would be a hard one to, even be aware of if you're not putting your body through some kind of stress, which you are as an entrepreneur, as a sales person, right? Like you're going out and you're doing the hard thing every day. And that's another thing that I gave me pause when I was looking at monitoring these athlete data. So it wasn't just the DNA that we looked at, it was their other aspects of how they responded to training. So there are all kinds of different metrics that I'll spare you the jargon, but the point was that you could basically look at these trends of athletes and predict when they were going to get injured based on how they were reporting the level of difficulty of the training. And the interesting thing is the reason why they would report the training to be difficult was different for every athlete, for a number of reasons, like nutritionally or, genetically, they're less suited to, one kind of training over another. So in terms of getting to the root of an issue, the good thing is like you're stressing yourself out enough to notice a difference. And the bad news is you're in that Russian roulette or trial and error period. I like to call it, the journey that you're on is really about finding fit or finding Goldilocks, right? And where is that Goldilocks zone? And so it is always you interfacing with the environment, but then it's like, okay, well, there's an observation. And I've collected enough of these to know that, when the star constellations are in such a way, that's when I plant seeds, and when they're in another space, that's when I harvest them, right? So humans have been doing this forever, and I think we now have these tools that we can follow up to these questions that we're asking. One of the ones that I just experienced, recently was, on the managing of stress. And, for that, I'll use various, incantations or meditations or physical exercise type practice. But on a deeper look at my genetics, I found I have a specific variant of the MTHFR gene that, kind of messes with my vitamin B metabolism. And so I can be in depletion there. And anybody who's low in vitamin B, tends to be fatigued, tends to be more irritable. And so, I was trying to meditate those problems away because I thought, hey, this is a psychological thing. But it's like, no, this is biological. Mm-hmm. So the introduction of something like S-adenosine methionine is like the key nutrient to kind of unblock that pathway. So it's like, oh, and then it's like, these aren't things where you're like taking a caffeine shot or taking some kind of, cognitive enhancement pharmaceutical. Like, these are holistic solutions that, they're not going to, bring with them some other consequence, picking up the other end of the stick, so to speak, if you were to, go hardcore with pharmaceuticals, which some people do. So yeah, the short answer to all that is, there are hundreds of things, thousands, tens of thousands of things that you're going to find out about yourself in your lifetime. Don't try to do it all at once. But I think the other thing is don't try to do it yourself. There's like a ton of, resources, out there, emerging, in terms of, coaching, whether that be nutrition, whether that be, in the weight room, human performance, whether that be, DNA coaches. So, I think the key though is to have a question, have a goal, and then, just talk to somebody about it.